Good evening, dear friends. We start today's program with an invocation. Good evening once again, dear friends. Sri Aurobindo Complex Trust warmly welcomes all of you here for the celebration of the Golden Day, 29th February. Today we have with us Dr. Ajit Sabnis, Managing Trustee, Sri Aurobindo Complex Trust, to give a talk on the significance of supramental manifestation. Before we start the program, please keep your mobiles in silent mode. Sri Aurobindo Society, JP Nagar, houses Mirambika School for New Age, a CBSE school from nursery to 10th standard. We have a beautiful meditation hall with Sri Aurobindo's relics. This beautiful cultural exhibition hall. We are also the Karnataka state headquarters of Sri Aurobindo Society with about 33 Sri Aurobindo Society centers in Karnataka. Publication of Kannada books on Sri Aurobindo and the Mother takes place here. We also have a newly formed Auroyuth wing which regularly conducts workshops. You can help us in the divine work here by becoming members of Sri Aurobindo Society. The forms are available at reception. You will get a beautiful magazine every month by sponsoring our publications and other activities by volunteering your service. Before I go ahead, the message for today. The manifestation of the supramental upon earth is no more a promise, but a living fact, a reality. It is at work here, and one day will come when the most blind, the most unconscious, even the most unwilling shall be obliged to recognize it. Lord, thou hast willed, and I execute. A new light breaks upon the earth. A new world is born. The things that were promised are fulfilled. The Mother. Well, a short introduction of Dr. Ajit Sabnis. Dr. Ajit Sabnis is the chairman, Mirambika School for New Age, executive and core committee member, Sri Aurobindo Society, Puducherry. He regularly gives talks on management, integral education, and many topics on Sri Aurobindo and the Mother in India and abroad. Under his leadership, the Oro School at Yedugudu Village, Kanakpura Road, will be functional from the academic year 2024-2025. Admissions are open for registration from nursery to 7th standard. Education and sustainability is his passion. Well, with these few words, I hand over the session to him. Thank you.
Namaste to one and all. It's a very auspicious day today for all of us, especially to the followers of Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. And today is 29th February. On this day in the year 1956, there was a descent of supramental consciousness, and Mother called this as Golden Day. On the first anniversary of this supramental day, that was in 1960, the descent of supramental was on 29th February 1956. Because it happened in the leap year, we have the anniversary once in 4 years. Every year, if we take, this is the 68th anniversary of the descent of supramental. But because it happens at once in 4 years, this is considered as 17th anniversary of the supramental descent. Mother called it as Golden Day. And in the year 1960, she also announced it as the Day of the Lord. She calls it as the Day of the Lord because it was the Lord who descended into the earth. His consciousness came into the earth's atmosphere. So she called it as the Day of the Lord. It was the evening in the playground where sadhaks met for the meditation, the evening meditation. You can imagine the playground, those who have seen the ashram playground, you can imagine the playground, the mother sitting in front of Akhanda Bharat, and all sadhaks came, sat down on the floor, and mother used to sit on the ground. The meditation began with the music. As usual, the meditation ended. All sadhaks got up, started leaving the door as usual. Majority of them who had gathered there could not understand what had happened. Subsequently, Mother narrates this incident, what actually happened on that day, on that particular evening. So I would like to read it in her own words. This evening, the divine presence, concrete and material, was present amongst you. I had a form of living gold, bigger than the universe, and I was facing a huge and massive golden door which separated the world from the divine. As I looked at the door, I knew and willed in a single movement of consciousness that the time has come, and lifting with both hands a mighty golden hammer, I struck on one blow, one single blow on the door, and the door was shattered to pieces. Then the supramental light and force and consciousness rushed down upon the earth in an uninterrupted flow. Now, if you look at this passage where Mother has recorded, she says, I had a form of living gold bigger than the universe. What does it mean? How can we imagine a figure that is bigger than the universe? She probably was looking at the universe by staying as a part of upper hemisphere, Parardha, and not the lower hemisphere. The creation, the universe, the cosmos, what we see, belongs to the lower hemisphere, the Aparardha, where we are acquainted with the terms like universe, cosmos, etc. But she is beyond cosmos, beyond universe. So that is why she could say that she had the figure bigger than the form, bigger than the universe. Then with one single blow, she breaks that golden lid. And it is in the Vedic wisdom, in the Vedic references, this is the golden lid. Hiranmayena patrena satyasyapi hitam mukham tat tvam pushana apavrunu satya dharmaya drishtaye. That means it is this golden lid. The golden face is covered with a lid, and you need to break that lid to see the truth, the face of the truth. So this is the explanation mother gives on that particular day. That is how the supramental descent came down to the earth. Now, another important thing is today's message, what Vaishali read. These are the two messages given by the mother on two different occasions, confirming the descent of supramental consciousness. The first message actually was a part of her prayers and meditations. Look at this, this is very beautiful. It was a part of her prayers and meditation written on 25th September 1914. 25th September 1914, what she writes is, it was in the future tense. What we read here today is, Lord, thou hast willed, and hence a new light breaks upon the earth, a new world is born, the things that were promised are fulfilled. This is the message she gave on 29th March 1956. But almost in 1914, 25th September, she had said, a new light shall break and a new world shall be born. So now in between 1914 and after literally 42 years, she confirms that the descent has happened. The another beautiful message, I hope you all remember the importance of 29th March, because that is the first time when mother came and met Sri Aurobindo. So the second message which she read was the message which has been repeated, was the message given by the mother on 24th April 1956. That is 2 months later, she gives this message that the descent of Supramental has happened. So these are the two important affirmations by the mother as far as the descent of Supramental is concerned. Now, to understand today's topic, the significance of descent of supermind or supramental consciousness is, we need to look at it right from the time of creation. Let us go back. Let us leave everything. Let us pause for some time and then go back right to the point of creation. Almost since the beginning of the creation and the formation of the matter in the universe, there is a continuous evolution. We started with physical evolution, which involved the formation of stars, galaxies, etc. And there was actually a chemical evolution, which was actually making all the atmosphere filled with necessary gases that are required for the growth. And the third evolution was the biological evolution. Once the earth was ready for all these physical and with the chemical evolutions that has happened, everything was ready. The oxygen in the atmosphere was of the right percentage, nitrogen, carbon dioxide, there are several greenhouse gases, etc. All those gases which are there, which are required for human existence, while the life to sustain on earth actually gets completed, and then the biological evolution takes place. And when the biological evolution takes place, it starts with single-celled prokaryote, and then comes then the life, and then the whole thing evolves from plants to amphibians to animals, and then to a trillion-celled human species. When the human species also come onto the earth, human beings also further evolved many folds. From the Homo erectus, where the human species started walking straight on his legs with the erect spine, between that and the present Homo sapiens sapien, there is a tremendous improvement. And what is important here to note is this improvement is, there is not much improvement in the form or shape or the physical appearance of the man. All the internal organs, internal systems are almost the same. Then what is that which has made the difference between man and the ape? It is that intelligence, it is that evolution, it is that change in the consciousness, it is the growth in the consciousness, and it is that which has made the present man different from the chimpanzee or the Homo erectus from where we have come from. So this is the beauty. So what I'm trying to say is, almost since the day of Big Bang happened, since the explosion, what the Vedas called it as Vispot, science called it as Big Bang, whatever it may, since the beginning of the earth, since the beginning of the universe, since the creation started, there has been continuous evolution. This evolution, Sri Aurobindo calls it as evolution of consciousness itself, because there has been always a change. There is the transformation from the lower consciousness to a higher consciousness. That has happened from when the evolution happened from plant to amphibian. There was an evolution of consciousness from amphibian to some other species. So mammals, there was an evolution. From mammals to human being, then there has been evolution. So there has been a continuous upgradation of consciousness that has happened. Now, Sri Aurobindo also observes that whenever there is a change of consciousness, whenever there is a higher consciousness which comes and then acts on the lower consciousness, this happens because the higher consciousness is already involved in the lower consciousness. For example, life came out of matter. Why should life come out of matter? Mind came from life. Mind came into life as slowly animals evolved. Mind came into life. Why life should come out of matter and why mind should come out of life? This is because life is already involved in matter and mind was already involved in life. These are the important principles. Whenever that means, unless there is a higher principle which is involved in the lower principle cannot act. The higher principle is involved in seed. For example, if I take a mango seed, the higher principle is of mango is involved in the mango seed, and that is why mango seed grows only into a mango tree, which is a lower principle. So that intelligence, that encryption happens with the higher principle when it comes into the lower principle. And this is also applicable, the play of higher principles, not necessarily that it should happen only at spiritual level. It happens even at the common level with common man in our own common life. But these are all appearances, these higher consciousness, maybe from higher worlds, from anywhere. They come in flashes to us, to individuals. Suddenly, this flash may come to a scientist, and there will be an innovation, creation, which will help the entire humanity. Here, scientist is used as an instrument from the higher forces. That flash comes to a particular person who happens to be a scientist. The innovation, the creation, what comes out of him because of one single flash helps the humanity. So this is what is what we see this, that is how we see the advancements in science, in the field of medicine, we see arts, we see now in sports, the physical also is getting improved so much. The physical is getting slowly transformed to a higher consciousness because more and more people are becoming conscious about their physical form also. That is how we are now finding more sports people, more people coming into the sports. And that is how the change of consciousness is slowly creeping in with our own effort, with our own aspirations, and also from the higher principles. Now, before we proceed to understand what the importance or the significance of the supramental descent, we need to understand a few paragraphs, let us say a few aspects of Indian philosophy. In general, most philosophies have two movements. What is that movement? Whether you take Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita, or any other Indian philosophical system, we accept two movements. And the first movement is the movement that is based on the acceptance that there is only one God who has created all of us. And that God, whether you call him as absolute, you call him as God, you call him by any name, but it is that supreme intelligence who comes from the summit of his consciousness into the matter level. So when this descent happens from the summit of his consciousness to the lowest level, to the matter, when this descent happens, there is a creation of the universe. There is a creation. So this is the first movement, what we need to actually understand. Now, in this movement, when the first movement takes place, the Supreme decides to create the universe, and as it comes down from the highest level to the lowest level, Sri Aurobindo explains 8 planes of consciousness. That means the creation has taken place, and then he names 8 worlds, 8 levels of 8 different worlds. Each world is with a different consciousness. And then so this is the movement from top to down. That is from the supreme consciousness to the level of the matter that comes. Now, which are these 8 principles? He explains it beautifully in Life Divine in the chapter, the seventh chord of being. Now, which are these 8 principles? The first principle that comes down is, he is an infinite. Satyam Jnanam Anantam is his character. He is infinite. But how does he make? He is all pervasive. Everywhere he is. So how does he expresses himself so that the world can understand, his people can understand, the creation can, what he's going to create can understand. This comes into the picture. So what he does from his infinite expressions, he can also express himself into anything. He is unknowable, but at the same time, he is knowable also. He also can express himself. He is formless, but he can express himself. Now, so what he does, he expresses himself in 3 forms, that is Sat, Chit, Ananda. The Supreme Lord expresses himself. The Supreme expresses himself into the 3 forms, Sat, Chit, Ananda. Sat is existence, Chit is the consciousness, is also complemented with Shakti. So the consciousness is not just Purusha or the awareness, it is the awareness with the administrative power, with the creative power, with absolute power. So that becomes the consciousness force. And the third thing is the bliss, which is Ananda. These are the 3 essential characters of that Supreme. So he expresses it so that this comes into the creation. This actually forms people can easily understand. We all can easily understand. Now he has expressed himself, and all these three aspects of that supreme are also equally charged, equal in their consciousness. They are actually the representatives of the supreme consciousness itself. So it becomes necessary that there should be one more medium, one more principle which can translate this infinite intelligence in a very crude manner, where if I have to explain that the way I have my intelligence, the man has his intelligence, through mind, everything works. Let us say this is Supreme Lord's intelligence, how he has to work. So how does he do it? So he expresses himself again into the fourth principle, and that is the principle of supermind. And that supermind, the consciousness at the level of supermind, is the supramental consciousness. So these are the four principles, the four worlds which are created. So these four worlds actually form the upper sphere or the parartha. So the first plane we have Sat, then the second world we have Chit, third world we have Ananda, the fourth one is actually the supermind, the world of supramental. What exactly is supermind? What is supramental consciousness? We will take it little further, little later. Now, when these four worlds come into the picture, there is a lid which is formed, so that which separates the upper hemisphere of the supreme consciousness and the lower hemisphere where the world gets created. Then as it comes down, then there is a world of mind which is created. Then mind is a higher principle than the life, which is the sixth. Then there is matter. These are the three primary principles, but Sri Aurobindo introduces the fourth principle even in the lower half, aparardha, which we call it as soul, because the soul is the representative of bliss or the ananda aspect of the divine. And here, so these four principles on the top are exactly the inverse principles in the lower half. That means Sat is the inverse principle of matter. Chit is the inverse principle of life. Then Ananda is the inverse principle of the Chit, that is the soul, what we call, and the supermind is the inverse principle of mind. So the world, which is upper world, is actually the reflection of the lower world. But what happens is, as the supreme consciousness, that consciousness comes from the above to the below, it starts diluting. It starts losing its power. It starts getting covered with ignorance. So at the time when it comes to the level of matter, it would have covered completely with all the ignorance. And that is why we are not actually able to identify the divine which is already involved in us. So this is actually the principle which comes into the picture. And this is where, and the fifth principle here, which is important, the principle of supermind, which we are talking about today, of primary importance, the supramental consciousness. The next one is also very important because it is the overmind, which in the level of minds, which we will talk about it little later. So the hierarchy of minds as given by Sri Aurobindo are also very important. Now that we have talked about the three movements, the first movement we have talked about. Now let me come to the second movement. What is the second movement? All the philosophical systems accept, the Indian philosophical systems accept, is the second movement is our journey, our evolution from the lower level to the higher level. That is, what is the goal? Our goal is to become one with the God. I mean, that is what all philosophies say. Advaita says that become one with the God. So we all run away So seek moksha, seek individual salvation, run away from the society, meditate, stay alone, and then seek individual moksha, individual salvation. This is most Indian philosophies agree to this. So this is actually the second movement which becomes actually important. So you meditate, you become one with the God, you become one with the Supreme, you are out of the cycles of life and birth, life and death. So you move away from the cycles, everything is resolved. But it is not Sri Aurobindo's view. Individual moksha or individual salvation doesn't solve the problem of the society. Every human being has also the Samaja Runa, Pitru Runa, and Deva Runa. We need to give these, satisfy all these responsibilities what we have. So running away from the society, seeking individual salvation is not a solution. By that, the purpose of the evolution, the goal of the evolution is not solved. That is not the goal of evolution which has started. The aim of evolution has to be something different. Otherwise, it is impossible. We can never expect the society to grow, the society to evolve, isn't it? How can we expect the divine life upon earth? It is impossible for us to expect divine life upon earth. Now, this is the second movement. And this is where Sri Aurobindo differs from all other philosophies. And this is where the uniqueness of Sri Aurobindo comes. Sri Aurobindo goes one step ahead. He says, we had no role in the first movement. First movement was that of the God himself. He came from the above to the top, from top to the bottom. He created the worlds and everything, then he gave it to us. We had no role to play there. We have a role to play only in the second movement, where we go from bottom up to reach the divine consciousness. That is the second goal. But Sri Aurobindo says, because he identified that individual salvation does not solve the problem, then how do you solve the problem? How do you improve the society? How do we establish divine life upon earth? All this issue comes. So he says, he focuses on the third movement, and what that is called as bringing down the supramental into the earth's consciousness. The word consciousness, bringing down to the power, to the mind, and it is not only bringing down that supramental consciousness, but make use of it into transforming the lower nature. That is, transforming our individual physical, transforming at the life level, and also at the mind level or the mental level. Now, let us read and recapitulate what Sri Aurobindo defines his integral yoga is. How do we define integral yoga? What is the aim of integral yoga? Is not only to rise above the ordinary ignorant world consciousness. It is just not to rise above the ordinary consciousness, but to bring down that supramental consciousness into the body, life, and mind, and then transform it. So this is the third movement which Sri Aurobindo differs, and he goes beyond all other people. It was said Rishi Agastya tried this third method, and it was not possible, because at that point in time it was not required. The earth was not ready. So it is very apt to read one passage of Savitri here. Awake not the immeasurable descent. Immeasurable descent is the supramental descent here. Speak not my secret name to hostile time. Man is too weak to bear the infinite's weight. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. Truth born too soon might break the imperfect earth. What is the truth born? Truth here is the truth consciousness, the supramental consciousness. It is so powerful. We human mind cannot comprehend because we belong to the lower hemisphere. In the upper hemisphere, the dimensions are different. The power is different. The intensity of the force is different. That truth consciousness, if it is born too soon, it might break the imperfect earth, because the earth is not yet perfect. The earth is not perfect means we human beings in the earth still not reached that level to receive the higher consciousness. We still belong to a very ordinary consciousness. Today's talk, today's subject of the descent of supramental, significance of supramental is actually pertains to this third movement, what we talked. So Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga tells us about three movements that are necessary, and other most Indian philosophical systems talk about two movements, and this is where Sri Aurobindo differs. Now, what happens? Another important thing here is Sri Aurobindo also talks about simultaneous possibilities. Sri Aurobindo doesn't talk saying that you do this, after this you do that, and then you do the last step. He doesn't say that. Now you take, let us say, to understand today's significance, let us now look at the terms few pages and look at the events that have happened in Pondicherry or in the life of Sri Aurobindo and the mother. Right from the day in 1893, when Sri Aurobindo stepped his foot on the Indian soil, then an Adesh or command to Sri Aurobindo to move to Pondicherry, and his meeting with the mother, who eventually came forward and stayed with him as his spiritual collaborator. Sri Aurobindo's explanation to his fellow ashramites, that time ashram was not there, but the people who stayed with him, explaining them who the mother is, why he called her as a supreme mother. And there are so many other events which actually came into the life. The realization of, Sri Aurobindo, when in the Alipur jail, what happens? Then the descent of overmental consciousness on 24th November in 1926. All these events actually mark, if you join these dots, they are all point out to tell us that all these events were actually inevitable or necessary for the descent of supramental. Otherwise, if the field is not ready, if the person is not ready, if an individual is not ready, how is it possible? How can we expect that supramental force or the supreme supermind can descend into the Earth's atmosphere? It was not possible. So slowly it was, these Sri Aurobindo and the mother slowly started preparing the field for the entire descent of the Supramind. Even the formation of Sri Aurobindo Ashram. Mother wanted to make a field where not in comprising of few individuals, at least when the force comes down, let there be few individuals. I gave you the example. Sri Aurobindo always talks about critical mass. The way all monkeys did not convert into human beings in one time. Why? We don't know how the nature works. In the intelligence of nature, in the scheme of things, we don't know. A few monkeys also might have been evolved, reached the stage, and then we don't know how only few monkeys got converted or transformed into human beings. There was a mutation, then there was a sudden change in the genetic scheme itself, then suddenly appearance of Homo sapien came into the picture. So similarly, when similarly, there is a possibility of a man or a or human species with higher powers, with higher additional capabilities is also a possibility. Now, whenever there is a higher plane works, for example, we have seen Mother has explained us and talked to us how the overmind works, how the overmind power works. That means, for example, she gives the advance. For example, this Sri Aurobindo's writing itself. Sri Aurobindo's writing, Sri Aurobindo had an old typewriter, and once he starts typing, it never used to stop. Many times it has been said, Sri Aurobindo himself also has said it in one or two places, he has first written and then he has read his own article to understand. And sometimes he has said, I have never read the articles once it is written. That means the higher force, the higher consciousness has got a different approach to get into the lower principle, where, for example, another example is Beethoven creating the music, the Beethoven creating symphonies. How is it possible? Somebody who is an extreme tabla player, the one who plays the strings, their fingers are so conscious. There is a direct, it doesn't go through the mind at all. It automatically starts. And that is exactly what used to happen to Sri Aurobindo also when he used to start typing. There was a direct communication from the higher planes to the cells of the fingers. So every cell, there is a possibility of becoming consciousness. And that is what we will little later, we'll look into it, the yoga of cells. That is where the Mother involved in the yoga of cells, the transforming every body cell into the transforming in the transformation. Then in the case of supramental power, when the supermind comes down here, Sri Aurobindo also talks about when the supermind coming down and acting upon the physical or acting upon the lower principle can happen only when we have accomplished the transformation of the physical and the spiritual. So he talks about triple transformation. That in the triple transformation, the physical transformation is the psychicization is the first one. The psychicization actually is allowing the true self, my true inner being, to come forward. And the second step, we can go through in detail about the psychicization, the triple transformation aspect of it. The second one becomes, so we start listening to our true self. Our mind becomes an instrument of the self. So now it is the other way. We have only justification for whatever I do. We only start justifying the action what I did, the decision what I did is correct, and this is why I am correct. So we do not have any other thing other than, and we use all kinds of reasons, all kinds of logic, just to justify and prove myself that I am correct. The other man's viewpoint is never considered, isn't it? This is our very regular, common trait, human trait, which we experience. But here, what happens when the psychicization happens, you step back. In Science of Living, the Mother says, you step back and then see whether am I talking is only justifying my own statement, or does it consider the other man's viewpoint also? This becomes very, very important. This is the first step. That means the first step is very simple. Surrender to the mother and aspire to grow. That is the first step. All our activities are happening. Everything is happening. Well, the first simple step is offer ourselves to the mother, to the divine, and then give everything to her. Aspire to grow. This is all that is required. But the surrender has to be like a cat and not like a monkey. The kitten gives her life. I mean, the kitten is very happy when the mother holds it entirely, its neck with its teeth. And it is 100% sure that she will not be killed. But whereas in the monkey's case, it is the baby monkey which clutches the mother. So if baby monkey's clutches loose, mother doesn't have any control on the baby. So the surrender has to be like a kitten, and not like a monkey. That's what the mother says. So that is so much of confidence, so much of surrender that has to be happen. And that surrender will open up the psyche, will come to the front. And it is where, when that comes front, then your mind should start listening to the inner voice. And it doesn't stop there. Only if your mind listens to it, it doesn't stop there. Your inner voice also tells you that, look, what you are doing is incorrect. I crave for sweets. I love sweets. Every year I pass a resolution that from tomorrow I will not eat sweet. Within 10 minutes, if somebody wishes me happy birthday or happy new year and gives me a sweet, my resolution is gone. I enjoy the sweet. That means there are a lot of desires come into the picture. All of us are human beings. We have something or the other that is negative, which is there. And many of us hide it within. And there are a lot of, we hate some people, let us say. We hate there is 100% sure, but we don't show it. We all suppress it. And one day when it opens up, then you start expressing, and that is where the break happens. That is where this happens. Maybe happens in the divorce cases. This may happen between two individuals. So even only mind is not sufficient. The life also has to. That means our vital also has to be surrendered. We should reach a stage where even our vital, with the desires, we should listen to the inner voice and then surrender it. Then the second step. And when this happens, this should happen also at the physical level. The body should not dictate the mind. Oh, there is no point in doing exercise. I am tired. Let me sit. Let me enjoy. Let me sit and enjoy. Whereas somewhere something tells me, go boss, go for walk. It is good. Do some exercises. It is good. Take up some physical activity. It is good. We listen to the mind. We don't listen to that, but we become tamas. We become slaves of the mind. Mind tells me, boss, no necessary. Just sit and enjoy. Your vital tells you, while sitting, you eat something. These are all desires. So that means mind is the boss. Mind controls my desires. Mind controls my vital. Mind controls my emotions. Mind controls my justifications. Mind controls my body. Mind controls my physical, everything. That is why among the three levels, that is why the physical is the lower, the matter is at the lower level, then vital is slightly superior, and then mind is the supreme boss here. That is why we are called as mental beings. So these are the things, but we need to go higher up. higher and higher. So this is what the reverse of this is the second movement. That means we need to become more and more consciousness, and this we need to listen to the inner voice. That is the first transformation in the triple transformation. So that is the psychicization. Then the second step, when this is happening, when you start listening to the inner voice more and more, more and more, then there is a slow opening on the other side. You starts becoming, realizing that, oh, there is the other man's point of view becomes very important to you. And you start, the other man also is same as what you, because he also has the self, which is nothing different from the representative of the same self, who is the source is one, isn't it? So that concept of one in all and all in one comes into the picture. This is where Sri Aurobindo saw when in Alipur jail, and then he says, I look at the jailer, he looks the same. I look at the bar of the jail, it looked the same. I looked at the other prisoner, he looked same. So this is the concept of one in all and all in one. That means we don't differentiate at all. Then actually we start realizing that we are all part of the same one bigger source and the bigger consciousness which comes into the picture. So this is the second step, the second step of triple formation, that is the spiritualization. And the third one is the supramentalization. Now, this becomes extremely difficult. So this is where the crux of the problem comes into the picture. To go to the realization is different from transformation. Please remember. In Sri Aurobindo's yoga, in integral yoga, if I realize over mental consciousness, if I realize, become aware of my inner psychic being or inner self, it doesn't make any difference. What is important is this transformation. What is important? Realizing the descent of supermind is one thing. It is in no way helps you to go further. But that after realization, how are you making use of that descent of supermind or the supramental consciousness which is available? How are we making use of it? And how are we transforming our physical? The role of supramental, descent of supramental consciousness is primarily to transform the physical. Mental can be transformed with all the steps what we are talking about. The psychicization and spiritualization happens to a great extent, but the supramentalization requires supramental force to do. Now, here is the crux of the issue. The third step is possible only when the supramental force acts on it. The physical transformation has to happen before the supramental force acts on it. Now, supramental force is not here, but the supramental force has to act on it. On the physical has to be transformed. Who has to bring the supramental force down? To bring the supramental force, somebody has to realize the supramental force. And this was the job of our masters as avatars, the double-poled avatars, Sri Aurobindo and the Mother. That was the task given to them. Their role was, Krishna had a role in Mahabharata. Sri Rama had a role in Treta Yuga. They did that role and then disappeared from the scene. For having born as human beings, Krishna also dies at the end. So everybody has to go, they finish their role. All avatars who came here, they either go from the scene, like Parashurama, many people say he is immortal, he's still going around and then seeing everybody, but he's not visible. Either they become invisible to the present humanity, or after their role, they disappear. They start working from the subtle planes, from different planes. And that is what the role of the mother and Sri Aurobindo. So when the descent happens, somebody had to take this responsibility. Somebody first had to become aware of the consciousness, of that supramental consciousness. That is where Sri Aurobindo comes into the picture. The supramentalization in Sri Aurobindo, the realization of the supramental consciousness in Sri Aurobindo had happened by 1910 itself. He was ready that realization had happened. But how do you transform the physical? That is when Sri Aurobindo goes, and that is why he completely goes after the descent of, in 1910, descent of overmental had not happened. Krishna's consciousness had not got into the physical of Sri Aurobindo, but that was a necessary step. So he worked on it. And once the overmental consciousness descended into the thing, because before the descent of supramental consciousness, overmental consciousness had to descend. So that is what happened in the physical of Sri Aurobindo on 24th November 1926. After that, Sri Aurobindo goes into seclusion, pure tapasya. Sri Aurobindo's integral yoga and his tapasya reaches its peak in 1935. Around that period. That is where everything comes, everything flows from Sri Aurobindo. All the Arya writings and everything, all writings of Sri Aurobindo, his answers, all the letters on yoga, everything by Savitri is in full swing. All these things had reached its peak by 1935. And then slowly the realization of the supramental is also happening. And all these conversations, Sri Aurobindo's body, physical, starts filling with the supramental light. And by 1950, there starts the discussions. Who should? Now, supramental force is realized in the physical. As I told you, see, let us be very clear. Let us not think that these are extremely complicated spiritual terminologies. Let us understand in a very simple way that, as I told you, if a good idea comes to a scientist, yesterday I was giving this example, Madame Curie got suddenly a flash of idea. She invented the vaccine, and the entire that vaccine which came out of from one scientist is helping the entire humanity, right? That is only at the mental level. Now imagine if it is at a supramental level where it is the highest, where it is the source of knowledge itself. It is not even the knowledge. It is not the acquired knowledge. It is not the accumulated knowledge. It is actually the knowledge itself. It is the source of knowledge. So nothing is necessary. No kind of input is necessary. Everything is by itself. So what happens at that level? So the field has to be necessary. So Sri Aurobindo made his body fit. The supramental descended. Now, once the supramental consciousness has descended, they have to prove to the world that it is possible to transform the physical also. Because even one person, Mother says, one person receives the supramental consciousness, he will transform the entire world itself. It is so contagious, it is so powerful that one scientist, a human being, helped the entire humanity just by one invention. There are a person who gets supramental consciousness down within his body has got infinite opportunities, infinite ways to transform the world. So one person was required. A critical mass was required. The mother narrates, she says, nobody in the ashram, the so-called sadhaks, who stayed, who sat in the meditation, or during when it descended in the playground, nobody realized it, nobody felt it except two or three. And she mentions that it seems there are only 5 people in the globe on earth who actually felt the descent of Supramental on that day. There are only 5 people. She says 2 are from ashram and 3 are from outside the ashram. These are very interesting to know. Not that we have never, Mother and Sri Aurobindo have never performed miracles. But these are all miracles, what I'm telling you. Mother says there are only 5 people who realized it, 3 outside the ashram. Only 2 are inside ashram. And one of them, she takes the name, she has mentioned the name, K.D. Setna is one of the persons. K.D. Setna was an ashramite, but he was not in the ashram. He was actually on that day traveling from Madras to Delhi in a first-class compartment. He was in the train and he was alone in his compartment. And suddenly he sees Mother in golden form in his compartment. And he asked the mother, "What is this? Why are you here?" And Mother says, "I had promised you that I will tell you, I will inform you when the descent happens. That is why I have come here to inform you that descent has happened." Whereas Mother physically was actually sitting in Pondicherry in the playground. The other person in the ashram, who he is, we don't know. And who are those 3 people outside? We don't know. But the one of the 3 persons outside was, many people say that it was Dara Bendre, of our own poet, the mystic poet. Dara Bendre was the one outside ashram to actually feel the descent of supramental consciousness on that day. Because this we have come to know later when Bendreji writes his experience to the mother. He writes to the mother, "Mother, I suddenly saw yellow faces attacking India, coming in large numbers, coming onto the India and attacking Mother India." Mother just replies in 2 lines, "It may happen little later." And believe me, this was sometimes immediately after the descent of Supramental. And in 1962, Chinese war happens. Chinese are known to have yellow faces. Chinese war takes place. And in another letter to Nirodha, Sri Aurobindo also talks, he also says in one of those letters, he says, as and when the descent of Supramental is happening, there is lot of emergence from the subconscious, mud emerging from the subconscious. And this was the period when Second World War took place. So there was so much of resistance to the higher power. Do you know, it happens to us also. You want to do anything good, there is always something holds us back. I decide to do something good. Let me see, let others do. Then we will donate. This is very common. So we always hesitate to do something. So something good happens, there is always an adverse force which stops. But sometimes it is very essential. We all should, Mother used to give this very typical example of funnel. You know, if you take a funnel and hold it like this, it has got the long stem of the funnel inverse. You hold it inverse. So you have the stem of the funnel at the top, and then the funnel flares like this. So the supermind is at the top, at the tip of the funnel, the stem, and then the knowledge actually flows through, and then it flows through the funnel in direction. If you actually see the source of the higher force, which comes from the supramental force, it is from the single source, but when it comes onto the funnel, every ray, you imagine infinite rays coming from that source and then going through the funnel. There is no convergence once it leaves the funnel, right? That ray, it goes like this. Probably if I had a paper, I would have shown it to you. So it leaves and no ray meets it. Only thing is, it has got all the infinite rays drawn on the funnel have only one source. That is at the top. So it is only at that tip of the source, the top of the stem, it has got that source. It is connected, and we are all connected to that source. So everything is connected, but we have forgotten. Every ray thinks that I am the supreme, which we are separated. So this is how it actually happens. The Sri Aurobindo, and during the last days, there is a discussion that happens between Mother and Sri Aurobindo. The Mother says, you stay back, I will go, I will leave the body and start working for from the subtle world, because your body, you have the supramental consciousness, which is already realized in your body, and then you transform it. And then that is when Sri Aurobindo tells the Mother that your body is more plastic, more flexible. It is fit for transforming. So I will go up and then make you, work from the subtle planes. You be here. And that is why how the Mother decides to stay back. And Sri Aurobindo goes, works from the subtle planes. And that is how the actual descent of supramental happens 9 years after Sri Aurobindo leaves his physical. After the departure of Sri Aurobindo, Mother's experiment continues with the supramental consciousness, because everything that was accumulated in the body of Sri Aurobindo gets transferred. The supramental energy gets transferred to the Mother's body. So everything is transferred to the Mother. Mother actually becomes the Sri Aurobindo itself. Sri Aurobindo is there in all the other planes, all the other layers of our existence, except in the physical body. But he's there. But he represented, Mother also had Sri Aurobindo's consciousness. And they were working together. Still, physically, Sri Aurobindo was not with us, but he was working, they were working together. It is after that, after the descent of supramental force, which is confirmed by the Mother, then Mother starts her transformation of the body. You please remember when we talked about the third movement, where it is necessary for the supramental force to act, and to act on the physical, and the transformation of the physical is necessary. So supramental force is there, and using that force, Mother starts what is called as yoga of selves. Physical transformation is nothing but the transformation of the physical body itself. The transformation of the physical body is nothing but transformation of every cell. Every body cell has to be transformed. How? Because Mother says every cell out of these trillion cells, every cell has its own consciousness. At the subatomic level, science also confirms it. At the subatomic level, everything is different. That is the basic block which forms the universe. The microcosm, whatever is in the microcosm is reflected in the macrocosm, and whatever is there in the macrocosm gets reflected in the microcosm. So once this happens, every body cell is conscious. And the examples what I cited earlier of Sri Aurobindo's fingers typing directly, it is that knowledge from the higher realms which directly acts. For supramental consciousness to act on the physical, it doesn't require any intermediary planes. Because it is truth consciousness, it knows everything, it knows all the weaknesses, it knows all the other issues, and it knows the truth. Its action is direct. The action of the supermind is direct. If it wants your fingers to type, it doesn't require your mind at all. It becomes all the cells in the finger become conscious of what they should do, and then they start acting. So that is what the physical transformation is. What happens in the case of gymnasts, Olympic Games, which we see, they take the physical to the extreme, isn't it? If you see an Olympic gymnast performing, they take their physical performance to the extreme. The perfection of every body, every movement, every finger knows how to stay. The postures, if they don't, they cannot perform. Every aspect, every principle has to be formed. So they have not yet reached the final transformation. But if I compare myself to the gymnast, Olympic gymnast, I will realize forget about the other aspects of it, only my physical. I realize that for the human body, physical body, it is possible to reach that level. Many of the Indians who represented Olympics and won games, they never spoke anything about spirituality. They never spoke anything in English. They could not speak English. They could not express. But still they have performed. How? Because the focus was only on the physical. The physical consciousness reaches such an height, irrespective of that, means it just shows that a body can be trained, the body can be elevated in its state of consciousness, irrespective of the mental and the vital coming into the picture. Vital will comes into the picture. Will is required. But will doesn't come from the vital. Will arises from the source of the vital. Energy. It comes. So will is required to perform to the extreme. So we have to become conscious. So that is how Mother completes the work of yoga. But that was not the role given to them as avatars. The role given to them was to bring down that supramental and then act. And Mother showed that it is a possibility by using this supramental force, to transform the body. But eventually, they were born as human beings, so they had to live as human beings. So that is how they departed. And lastly, I would like to close my talk by saying that the result of this supramental, how does it happen? What happens? When Superman is born as nature's king, his presence shall transfigure matter's world. He shall light up truth's fire in nature's night. He shall lay upon the earth truth's greater law. Man too shall turn towards the Spirit's call. The Spirit shall look out through matter's gauge, and matter shall reveal the Spirit's face. With this, I close my talk. I hope you all have understood the significance of the descent of supramental, why it is so important today? Because it is a possibility that now the common question is why we are not seeing its effect, why there is so much of chaos, why there is so much of things happening. Yes, Mother has replied to all those questions, and we have the answer. Before this chaos, Mother has said in what we are seeing is nothing. We are yet to see a much worse chaos that is expected before the supramental actually acts upon. As a progressive evolution has to happen, and it is inevitable. So thank you very much.